help them go back to school and get those endorsements. And you'll see a couple of areas are the TESOL, which is to help teach our English language learners, the computer technology endorsement to really enhance our STEAM programming, as well as dance and theater. The P6 math endorsement. We have really focused a lot on literacy in the district, and rightfully so, but we also need to really enhance the 8 mathematical practices and the skills that our students are bringing to middle school and high school. And so we are encouraging some of our elementary teachers to go and get the P6 math endorsement that will make them more of a specialist in math. Then of course, hard to recruit areas of integrated math for high school and middle school, science, and then again, those special education. We're also looking at some advanced placement certifications and then foreign language. And we really want to focus on, we've been talking for a couple of years about trying to find another language besides Spanish to offer in our high schools. And so what we kind of have looked at is American Sign Language as a language that can be taught and students receive credit, which then would also allow more of our students to be able to get the honors diploma in the state of Ohio. So that's the rationale for looking at that area. So the second page that you have, or the second document, is another one where we want to work with our non-teaching staff, our educational assistants, those individuals who are not licensed teachers, to help them if they've already started a degree or they have a degree but they need to finish their teaching certificate, to help them with some of the costs of going back and getting certified to teach. There are some things built into their contract if they're a part of ASME that can help get that done. But there may be some that need to go outside of that area because their contract only pays for certain things. So we're going to allocate some funds. It'll be on a first come, first served basis. They'll have to do an application and there'll be a committee for both of these that will decide the funds. And then if they decide to accept these funds, they will sign a promissory note that they're going to stay with the district for 3 years beyond that time, okay? So it's not just that we're going to help you get certified and then you ride off into the sunset. We're going to help you get certified so we can put you in front of our scholars so that we can really meet our academic improvement plan goals. All right? So those are two things that Mr. Jennings will be looking at his next CEO resolution to approve. We just wanted you to hear it first and know that those are things we're doing to try to really help the experience for some of our staff members to expand their footprint, which ultimately then helps our students.
Through the chair, I have a question, Mr. I'm sorry, I can't think of your name, but you know who I mean. How much will those funds be? Because you said it was first come, first served, right? So how much will it be? I mean, is there a total pot that's going to be split up for so many people, or what?
There is. I'll let Mr. Jennings allocate that number. We set aside about $300,000. Okay.
Okay, so then approximately how many people do you expect to come forward?
I did the math, but it can't give you an exact number because it's different, depending on where they go to school at and how many hours they need. But to get them the P6 math endorsement, it would cost an individual about $4,000. So I've calculated out that we could probably do 50 to 60 people to be able to help get that endorsement. There are other endorsements that don't cost as much, and there's a couple that may cost a little bit more depending on where they are. But I'm estimating we can probably help 100 people.
And I'm sorry to ask you again, but what are the exact qualifications that they have to meet to be able to?
Can I finish answering your first question first? So we split the money up based on Ohio State rate, which is the highest rate in the state. So that's how he got to 100 people. So it could be 150, depends on if they go to YSU, Kent State, or somewhere local. And also, I don't know if you said this or not, but that money is money that's earmarked COVID money, but the federal government reimburses us for that money until not this December, 2024. So that money, once we spend it, we just have to justify it, and then the money automatically comes back to us because it was part of the original COVID relief fund.
Specific qualifications.
Well, for the teacher one, you'd already have to be a licensed teacher, okay? So for the other one, it would just be individuals who are in our classified union. It could be a bus driver, it could be educational assistant, anyone who's working for us. They have to be currently employed with us in a support role to take advantage of this.
And they will be able, for the classified,
Mhm.
they can go to school for whatever? or-
We need them to be working towards a teacher license.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
We also set aside money for those classifieds who want to get their CDLs as well. So if we have people who are custodians and they want to train to be a bus driver, we set aside money for that. We're trying to figure out ways to kind of have alternative ways to have bus drivers. So even if they don't want to be a permanent bus driver, if they can be a sub, and we need subs, we're doing that as well.
Good.
So really, I just have one last thing, just information, because as you get the reports, you'll see some of the rates that people are paid. We have crossing guards at most of our schools. They're just hourly employees. They only work between 4 and 5 hours a day. They were making $10 an hour. In the last month, we raised the sub rate to $10 an hour. So we only got it right to have a crossing guard rate increase. And Chief Morgan advocated for it, so we did increase their rate to $12.50 an hour. Right now, that impacts 17 total staff members, and that includes 3 subs. So again, part-time, 4 to 5 hours a day, but we wanted to bring them up to somewhat of a competitive rate as we could. All right. That's really all. One last thing is, and this is something that we talked about, the integrated system, comprehensive systems for equity with the board and doing the sessions that the buildings have gone through. Dr. Fatura has reached out and wanted me to relay to the board that they are definitely willing, able, ready, but the board would need to decide and come up with 5 2.5-hour sessions that they could dedicate to truly get the training in. And they would work around our schedule, but if that was something that the board wanted to talk about amongst themselves, let me know when we could schedule those, and then I'll set them up with ICS. So I don't know if I'm gonna work with Ms. Patterson in the group or what have you.
What training is that?
This is the equity training, the integrated comprehensive systems for equity. Is that training that we've been talking about for about a year. Walker's on our equity committee, and the buildings, our district leadership team went through a 3-day, or even buildings as well, went through a 3-day seminar back last June. And then over the course of this year, there's been building level coaching from those same individuals following up. And then the district team is working with those individuals across the district who are not tied to a building. And so we actually have our first coaching session or kind of rollout session next Monday with those folks. So it is a 3-year process, so nothing is like, we gotta get it done right now. It's not a next thing and we're done with it. It's an ongoing kind of awakening of how we do business in relation to equity. They need 5 2.5. They're flexible, so if the board wants to do 3, 4 longer sessions, but they recommend 5 2.5-hour sessions to cover everything. That is my report.
Who was that guy that's speaking? Jeremy Controller.
You want me to go first with athletics, and you go second?
Okay.
All right. Just a quick update for athletics. I think you heard my robocall. So we had a young lady, Rhea Ann from Cheney, who finished 5th in the state in the 60 indoor meter, indoor track meet. So congratulations to her. And also our boys, Cheney boys basketball, they won the district last week, Saturday. And they will play on Thursday at the Canton Civic Center at 6 o'clock. They play St. Vincent, St. Mary. Is that right, man? And the tickets are available. You have to buy them online. We don't sell them in school anymore. So you can go to ohsaa.org and tickets, and you can purchase your tickets there. All right.
One question I had when I noticed I was at the school, this is the 4th district championship for Cheney. This one would be the 4th. Well, the first one, I think there was a runner-up. But
Yeah.
then the last 2.
Third in a row.
Third in a row.
Yeah, they've been there 4 times, but this is the 3rd time in a row that they've won.
Okay. So the banners though, do they still get those? Because I didn't have seen those in the gym.
Yeah, we'll get, yeah, we'll check in with the athletic director. Yeah, they should have a banner. There should be a banner, not necessarily a banner, but for district championships, they normally do one banner and then put like the year with the ball on it. Right. So yeah, that needs to happen. Okay. Mr. Sunoka.
Hello, I'm Mike Sonolka, I'm the business manager. It's nice to meet all of you. I gave you 2 pages today. The first one is a narrative I gave the district in October after we started school. So it just basically explains the PPEs that we provided all the schools and the reorganization we did over the summer, which was a large undertaking of moving a lot of furniture and creating the middle schools and the elementary, just pre-K to 5. And just a little synopsis of upgrades of the HVAC. They're at the years now, 14, 15 years where they kind of need replaced now. And then some things that we were planning back in the fall of upcoming projects. So the second page is kind of a continuation of that, so you can kind of see what projects we already started. Some are pending in the table I gave you, and others have been completed, like a lot of the boilers we completed before the winter came in. And you can see the cost there as well. So the ones that say pending, basically we have not ordered yet, or the vendor is, with COVID, a lot of the parts, having trouble getting all the parts in. The ones that say like set, so like the chillers at the Taft and so forth have been set and on the ground but not connected yet because the weather's still a little cold, or they need piped in and things like that. So you can kind of see the progress we're making with the boilers and the chillers. Below the table are upcoming projects that we are planning for the future. So we have a bus parking lot that is in really bad shape that needs repaved. I'm working on getting another bid on that, and that'll go out for bid. I'm working with another vendor that's part of our co-op, because we need to do some preliminary stuff before we start that. They have to bore down into it and do some soil samples. So there's some things before we can actually start that project. Some roof repairs coming up for sure. And you can see some sales and purchase of some properties. So we have a few groups that are interested in buying some vacant land. So that's at John White. That land needs surveyed first, and then we have to let STEM schools and charter schools, according to Ohio Revised Code, that's it's got for sale, and then it goes to auction. If no other school wants to purchase it, then we put it up for auction. There's a family that wants to buy it. That's what started the catalyst for that, to put a farmer's market on that side of town. We have to do some more assessments of the other buildings that we did not replace, chillers and boilers. And then this spring and summer, we'll assess the roofs at all the other buildings that some of them are getting, like Cheney's roof is leaking badly, Taft roof. When some of the roofs were put in, they didn't do ice guards. So the bad winter we just had, we had like 12 inches of ice in the gutters, like at Taft. They had like 21 rooms that were just leaking water from the ice dams that built up. So we'll look at that as the weather gets better. Another project we're considering is scanning the inactive student records that are housed at Mary Haddow. We have approximately 8 million files. So we'd like to take those and scan those electronically, because our records secretary goes there and she has transcript requests. She's there for hours and hours, going through them physically and trying to find what they need, and it's not always successful. Okay.
City Chair. I have 2 questions. The first question is for your upcoming projects. Do you do a capital needs assessment tracker? Do you do that for like 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, I have a 5-year forecast that I submitted to the treasurer, and so we can kind of budget out like roofs, and we used a lot of the ESSER money this year to replace the HVAC. So once that's kind of expended out, then we'll have to just budget it out over the next 5 years.
And do you update that yearly?
Yes.
Yep. I wanted to follow up. Just so you know, last year was the first year we've ever done that. There was no 5-year plan or any maintenance plan, which is the reason why you see there's so much cost to the roof. So each one of everybody who's sitting up here outside of the treasurer, they were required to give me a 5-year plan for basically the utopia of what they thought the district needed, or for instance, for Mike, those repairs that we would need. Because what we don't want to do is we got a load of money through ESSER that we could do these things at the same time. But there needs to be a maintenance plan from here on. And just like when Mr. LaPlante bought the computers, we can buy 5 million computers right now, but 5 years from now, we can't buy 5 million more computers. So what's the plan for fixing the roof right now, and what's the maintenance plan for the roofs? Because a lot of these roofs are 14 years old, and they should have never gotten to the point that they are now, but we didn't have a plan in order to keep them from getting to that, basically some of the roofs are at a state of disrepair. They can't be repaired, they have to be replaced.
So now we have like a preventive maintenance schedule where it's gonna be like weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly?
We do, yep.
Okay.
With the roofs, with our boilers.
Kind of maintenance?
Yep, with all of my maintenance, yes.
Okay. And second question, for the, student records, is that gonna be an additional cost that's gonna be needed to be able to get that digital?
Yes, it's, I have one quote so far, and it's 1.1 million at this point, and I'm working with another vendor that's part of the Stark County Co-op.
Just for reference, when someone requests a transcript, most districts now, they have parchment, so it's electronic. But we have, like he said, almost 8 million files. So we have a lady who is about 80 something years old who goes in and she tries to look for them. But if you go into Mary Haddow, there's about 6 or 7 rooms stacked about 12 feet high with files. So they're hard to find. So we made the decision to digitize them, and it's about a year to a year and a half process. And that's the reason why it's so much money. But at the end, everything will be digitized. So if Mrs. Kimball wants her record, she can just put something in, and we can get it to her electronically within hours, as opposed to waiting 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and sometimes we never get them because we can never find them because there's so many records. Because I know it sounds like a big investment, but it's worth it for us.
To the chair. I'm kind of curious where the ice skating rink is.
So
It's actually near the bus garage down the hill.
So I want to get the justification for the ice skating rink. We're buying the ice skating rink because our bus drivers, they don't have anywhere to park. So our goal is to buy the rink, to tear it down, to make a parking lot, to make it safer for our bus drivers. There's nowhere to park, and plus we've got new buses, so we're going to need more space for our buses. So it's not a big price, but we wanted to get something that was really, really close to the bus depot because there's nowhere else down there where we can go. Otherwise, we would have to have them park somewhere else and start transporting them.
So the bus depot is on MLK Boulevard, right? Or
Teamster.
Teamster Drive?
Yeah, Teamster.
Off Teamster Drive. There's an ice skating rink back there?
It's an old rink, so
From 1940.
it's really old.
I mean, this is like news to me because I've never known that there was an ice skating rink back
All
there.
these years, I never knew.
It was interesting because we were actually going to buy a property looking to purchase a property across the street from there, but a church bought it and built a church there before we could even kind of inquire about it.
Through the chair, I had a question for Mr. Business Manager. You said something, did you say something about auctioning off north or a building or something?
The former John White land.
The land?
The land, yeah, it's a vacant land.
Okay.
And just for reference, that's state law. So if we want to sell a property, we have to go through the process of offering it to a community or a charter school first, and then after that, it has to go to auction. We can't we can't sell it like that.
Okay, see, I thought that was just for buildings, properties that had buildings. Is that for just vacant land too?
As well, yes. We work with Bricker, who's basically the school land attorney. We work with Bricker, and that was the recommendation. We have to follow that process.
Is that, I know that the board was still kind of had some jurisdiction over selling buildings and things. So is the board going to be involved with this land auction?
mean, yeah, yes, we,
It'll probably go past into the summer, it just depends on how fast we get moving on that. So it could happen before summer's over, it just depends on the timing.
Right, but my question is, and I don't mean to cut you off, I believe that House Bill 70 didn't take that privilege from the board. So I'm wondering, is the board going to be involved with that process?
It was my understanding the CEO still had that jurisdiction.
Do you want to speak to that?
that is correct. But I mean, if the board wants to be involved with the sale of the land, I don't have an issue with that. The young man came to us about the land to first build a farmer's market or a supermarket. So that's when we started to kind of do the research on the land and the surveying on the land to see if it was something we could even do. But then like we said, we found out that it had to be offered to the community and charter schools first before we do that.
Can I ask the person's question? I mean, I'm sorry, his name? You said the young man, who's the person?
It's a young man and a young lady. Well, they're younger than me. You remember their name?
Yeah, Chaz Allison.
Chaz Ellison and his wife. I think I'm almost positive they're both alumni of the district, both graduates of the district.
The name sounds familiar.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Can you give me more detail about the $3 million for chauffeuring? What's going on for chauffeuring on your list there? That because it's the highest expense on there. When it says something about chillers and rooftop and AC.
Yeah.
Let's elaborate on that a little bit, please.
That one needs they're all separate units because the roof is like 3 levels high. So they're like separate units. So there's 20 units that need replaced there. We have an HVAC guy, technician who goes out and checks those, and those are so old they just need replaced.
So you're replacing all the chillers on the building?
They're like rooftop units, air conditioning units.
Right.
Yes.
And all of them are bad?
Well,
Yeah, they're over 17 years old. I think the one that's the youngest is like 17 years old.
like a lot of the chillers too that they have in some schools, they can't even get parts because they don't make the parts anymore either, so that could be a factor with that one.
And Mr. Williams, please keep in mind that this money is our, that we're using this COVID relief money. It's not money from our general fund at all, which is part of the HVAC and those different things, are what that money was intended for, to clean the air and different things like that. Like I said, I know it looks like it is a lot of money, but we've waited so long to do it. It has to be done.
And that's before the CEO.
Justin, I was just gonna say that it's nice that you brought that up because that is what I'll be talking about next.
Well, since you have the mic, if there's no more questions. Great transition.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. You know, I think everyone knows me. I'm Amanda McGinnis. I'm the one that oversees the state and federal grants. And the reason why I brought that up, like what Justin was saying about, for our grants, you have to follow guidelines and compliance. So when it looks like a lot of money, there's a lot of things you have to go through to even see if it qualifies. So the reason why I brought up my stuff, and it's all in this purple folder, for everyone has a purple folder. I'm not gonna go in real in-depth because I know it looks like I have a lot going on in my folder, but really, I'm just gonna go through my guidelines very briefly. So for Title I, when everyone says, if someone says to you, oh man, I wish I could buy this, or I wish I could buy that, or what are the guidelines and everything? ODE comes out with a Title I spending guideline, and we as a Youngstown City School District, we are school-wide. Our non-public schools are target assist. So in this packet, the main page that I would really like to draw attention to is page 4, where it talks about the 2 types of models. So we have school-wide and then we have target assist. School-wide is what I always highlight, because that's what I go through with our public schools, because this is what we talk about, that we are in Youngstown City. And then with the non-publics, I talk to them about the target assist model. And then when we talk about different things that we could spend, a lot of times they'll say, give me some guidance on what I could spend my money on. So that is on page 7. So we talk about different ways that we could spend the money. If you look on my notes.
Amanda, slow down real quick.
Oh, am I going
Slow
too
down real
fast?
quick. Well, I just want to make sure, do we need clarification on the difference between school-wide model and targeted assist before we keep going?
Yeah, thank you.
No, if they don't, then I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that everybody, you do? Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you for letting me slow down, because he is right, I get too excited, you guys know how I am. So for school-wide, when you think about school-wide is operating Title I funds for all of our scholars, and, because we all qualify, all of our scholars qualify. They still get tested to receive additional, support, but we service all of our kids with Title I funding. Target Assist with our non-public schools, they work with only Youngstown City School District scholars that qualify within the program. And to qualify, they would have to be, there's a multi-criteria, so there's 3 different ways that they could qualify. They could qualify due to their grades, maybe a principal recommendation or a teacher recommendation, and it also could be assessments that they had. And whenever we're looking at our Youngstown City School District, Title I funding, we spend it. There's 3 things across the board. Like if you would look at any of our budget grids that we have for our Youngstown City public school buildings, they have a Title I teacher is covered under the Title I funding. The guidance counselor, and I say guidance counselors because some schools have more funding that they could cover more guidance counselors. Parent engagement coordinator, and then some schools also have academic coaches that are covered. So as a district, we do a survey, which is going to be coming out, but we survey with parents, we survey the public, and we ask them, how would you like us to spend our Title I funding? And a lot of times, across the board, everyone pretty much says that they want to put it in towards people, because we want to grow people and work with people with it. So that's why we decided on district-wide and also with the public to have it with the Title I teachers, the guidance counselors, certified teachers. I want to stress that too. They're Title I certified teachers. They're not tutors, they're actual certified teachers. Guidance counselors and parent engagement coordinators.
I'm gonna make you pause again, Amanda.
Okay.
School-wide, that means that all the students in the school, they're eligible to use the Title I funds. Targeted assist means that they have to meet the factors. So those factors, they have to be at risk or currently failing. They have to have been or be in the preschool program. The next one is they could be a migrant or homeless or anything like that. And then the last one, well, the next one, I said homeless, so homeless is fine. And then the next one, they have to be a child what they consider neglect. So if it's a young lady who has a baby, if they have a parent who's incarcerated, if there's a foster child. So that's the difference between school-wide is everybody, but the targeted assist means they have to meet a couple of these factors in order to do that. So those factors are what's right there. Thank you, Amanda. I just want to make sure it was clear.
No, that's no problem.
Okay.
This is open. Anyone can, I'm fine with that. Once again, I'm stressing this because, it makes me so mad when I hear people say, we don't have funding for this, or what's the process and everything. Our number one thing that we are working on, and I'm being honest for 100% with this is one thing that we're working on district-wide too, is planning. How are we planning to spend our fundings and everything like that? So when we meet, I meet with all of the directors and all the building principals with their title funds, and we sit and we say, okay, here is your funding. If you look on my folder, I have a copy of our budget grid. This is our budget grid. It looks exactly like what it looks like in CCIP. So they know what I am putting into CCIP. I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's on my back, my requisition form.
What's CCIP?
That is the continuous improvement. Oh God, now I'm putting on this spot because it's our program that we have in ODE that we upload all of our information into it. So it's like the management system that we put our budgets into. This is a budget grid. Across the board, if you say, hey Amanda, can you show me the budget grid of this? Can you show me the budget grid of that? This is what we use in my department to help show the building principals and also departments how their money is getting spent and like where we plan together. Like I sit with the building principals and based on their school improvement plans, they set up a budget grid, and that's what this is. And in the supplies and capital outlay, we highly encourage only about 15% spent in supplies and capital outlay. The rest we like to see spent in salaries, retirement, and purchase service. Sometimes it gets a little higher with supplies and capital outlay if we have some carryover, but normally we really stress to people, we wanna see spending in salary and in benefits and purchase service, because that's where we're getting more, I don't know, bang for our bucks, because that's where we're getting the support. Do you know, like that's a human, providing the assistance to the scholars and everything like that for the salary and benefits.
I'm jumping in again. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that, because last time Pastor Donaldson asked a question about, and I know you're going to get into the requisition first, but I just want to explain to everybody, when you look at these codes, you look at the codes up here, the 100,
Yeah.
the 200, those are called USAS codes. Those are state codes. So when we spend money or we allocate money, those are the codes that they start with, right? Those are the codes that they start with. Now I think there's another 10 or 12 numbers after that? 28 digits, but this is what they start with. So we're gonna go later on when we do our board retreat. I hope that you allow me AJ and I to go a little more in depth so you can really understand the code, because each number in the code means something. So when it comes to this and the principal is asking for money, they have to go into this budget. Now, I can't speak about before I came in, but I know within the last 2 years, every principal in the building sits down with Amanda and Ava before her and AJ, and they go over what this is. So what we've done different now than what we used to do, whatever money they had left over from the year before is what they started out the year with. But now we don't do that. We going back to Mr. Bachelor, we base it on the need of the school. So if it's a school with 400 kids, but they have more need, they're gonna get more money than the school with 600 kids with less need.
Yes.
So that's the way we budget. We budget it based on need, not size of the school. That's how we're trying to get to equity in our funding.
That is correct.
Okay.
Good.
And then going back, so each principal knows their thing. And now what we run into a problem with is when they wait until 2 days before and they want to do it, and they want to do it on a credit card. And we don't have any checks, and we don't like to deal with credit cards if we don't have to. If it's an emergency, we'll use it. Otherwise, we ask them she'll probably go into this, the requisition it properly. And that's outside of, teachers also have money allocated for themselves for each classroom that they're allowed to spend as well. Now, I'm gonna say this before anybody says it. It's not enough money for what they spend on our kids, but it's what we're allowed to allocate for them, okay?
And also,
To the chair real quick, before you move on to,
Sorry.
can I ask a quick question? Okay, so if a child fits in the category of targeted assist model, do they also pull funding from the school-wide model as well?
We don't use both. We use school-wide. Targeted assist is more for our parochial school, our non-public schools. So we have, if a student resides in our district and they choice to a Catholic or anything like that, that money goes with them.
Okay, so that's where that is.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I'm sorry. Thank you for doing that, because I should have said that at the beginning. That money. So keep in mind, this money, when we get this pot of money, it's not just ours. It also belongs to those parochial students, not necessarily the school, but it belongs to those students. So if they need services, you'll see requisitions that go through that I signed off on for tutoring or for even security or anything like that. Those schools are allowed to use those funds for those things, because they're targeted assist, because that money is federal money and it follows the student, not the school district. Okay.
And just piggyback what he says, he approves everything too. So any contract that we have, through here, CO Jennings looks at the contract and he signs it off on it and everything. So like nothing gets pass really him, right? Like he sees everything, and even our non-pubs, he is 100% correct. Usually whenever they do a requisition, which we will go through that process too, but this is the requisition form that we were talking about with it. But this, really quick though, before I go on to that, the budget grid. This is, like I said, what is in our system in CCIP, the ODE system for our budgets. In order, we can't do any last minute changes with it because I have to input this into the system. Then we have to have ODE approve the budget. And then we have to set up budget lines to make sure that we have the right funds in that goes along with this budget. And then we process the requisition. So that's why we stress so much with planning. It's so important to plan because it's you have to do another budget revision within ODE if I'm gonna move something from a different number. So like if I'm gonna say, if someone says to me, you know what, Amanda, I really want, instead of having a contract, which is $400 with the purchase service with someone, I really don't think I'm gonna be able to spend that, so can I put that money in supplies? I can say, sure, but you have to remember, it's gonna be a process, because I have to wait, and all the district and non-pubs are all in the same system, not the money, the budget's all in the same system, so I have to wait until I get approval, like with all the buildings, in order for us to move on. So it is a process. That's why we stress to the principals when I meet with them to plan ahead. And that is where we're struggling. That is where we're struggling. Because even myself, we struggle with, because you get stuck with time and everything else, but you have to stress to plan ahead. So then when we do the process is, when I meet with them, we go over the goal, we go over the budget, and we talk about the grant that they have. We talk about the goals. How do the goals align to your school improvement plan? We even talk very briefly about the District 1 plan too, because we want everything to align. So like when they're doing a requisition to me, say if it's something, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something silly or something that might not sound silly to them, but it might be silly to us, like someone asked for a long time ago for Keurig machine because they wanted to give coffee for kids as a reward. And I was like, okay, step back. I go, okay, how does that fit in your plan? How does that fit with the one plan? Do you know what I mean? Like, we have to go through the process. Do you think ODE would approve something like that? You know, like, I really try to walk through that before we do a budget revision. And then I say, and remember, not only do I have to look at the requisition, also AJ approves requisitions too. And we also, if there's a contract, CO Jennings. So do you really want me to put a contract for a Keurig machine or something like that for CO Jennings to approve? You know what I mean? Like, these are questions that I'll say to them just to go through, just to make them think through different things. So the requisition process is they would get a quote because we can see a quote of what they're asking for. Then they fill out that requisition form. Now, this part here, we're still struggling with, we're still working on, is the SO levels, because that's one thing that I'll have to work harder on for next year, but that's the level of evidence, because one thing ODE will say, well, what's the level of evidence of whatever you're doing? Because when we have compliance, they give us a chart that we have to complete the level of evidence with it. Everything that they submit, I have to prove how it fits with our title and how it's meeting the compliance rules with it. So they fill out this requisition form, and they give me the quote, and then I approve it, AJ approves it, and then it gets created into a purchase order, and then they can actually get the item and everything like that. So it has to go through the process in order to get it. If they try to, because sometimes, like I think CO Jennings was talking about last minute, they might ask for something. We can't get anything processed through without a PO first. Oh, believe me, you don't want to go to, I call AJ's office, the principal's office. When I am there, when I do something wrong like that, I don't want to get in trouble with the principal. That's why I tell my principals, you don't want me to be in trouble with Principal AJ. So we want to make sure we follow the rules and the process with it. And then this part here is this part here is like the fun part that I like to go through too, is the PD request form. Oh, this part is the fun part, even though CO Jennings probably hates this part because I give so many of these for him. So if anyone would like to do a professional development, say it, because we encourage, our teachers and educators to, if they want to go for professional development. But we want to make sure it's meaningful, and we also want to make sure it aligns to the school improvement plan and their school improvement plan and also the one plan. So this is the PD request form that they have to complete. So there's questions in here that they're going to complete that kind of talks about why are they going to this PD? What's the purpose of it? What are you going to do when you go to this professional development? What are you going to bring back and share with your building? What's the purpose of it? And then when you fill out this form, CO Jennings gets this form, he reads through it, he signs off on it, and then I have to review it, and then AJ will review it. So it goes through several different steps with it. I know I'm probably bugging, putting you guys to sleep. Are you guys okay?
Yes.
Do you have any other questions?
How many, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
How many quotes are required? Is it just one, or is it over a particular amount? Is it more than one that is needed?
Normally, I just get for one quote, but for the higher amounts and everything, a lot of times we have bids for it, and that would be more, like Mike could probably talk more about that situation or AJ, but go ahead. Oh.
It's 3 for 10,000, but there's an exception. If they're in like our buyer program tips, co-op, if they're in our co-op, then we don't have to have it because the price is already set.
Yeah.
But normally we do go out to bid and we need to have at least 3 bids.
And that's just for 10,000, 1,000 or more.
10,000 or more, right? But most of our buying is from co-op or tips. If it's like the roof and the HVAC, those things are all covered under tips. So if you have a company that you work with, you normally just work with that company, because if you work with anybody, it's just going to be the same price anyway. So we try to keep the relationship. We want to keep it local as possible, but also have the highest quality, because we have had some issues. I think, like we talked about earlier, the roof at P. Ross Berry was whoever put it up. It was never, they went out of business within a year. So a couple years ago, well, maybe 4 years ago, when we were trying to get the roof fixed, we couldn't get it fixed because the warranty was up. So we make sure that we deal with companies who are going to be there for us.
To the chair. So, quick question. So, and I guess this is to the business manager. Are we keeping track as far as our warranties and when they'll be up and when it's off? Okay. And is that digital too as well? Is that digital as well as far as the tracking? For that?
Yeah, I have spreadsheets on pretty much everything.
Okay.
So we're keeping track, but it's not digital, it's a spreadsheet. Yes.
Well,
Yes. I just want to make sure
But
you.
it's that.
Yes.
To the chair, I just want to beg to make one announcement that I failed to do the most important part of my report. Back here, Ms. Cody Robinson, you've heard me say her name a lot, because she's my right hand, and I wanted the board to see her and know who she was. So, because you will hear me say Cody or Ms. Robinson, so I want the board to know who she is, because you may be getting communication from her as well. So, try to my head and not my heart, but she is just too important for me not to recognize. Thank you.
And just for references, because we have board members who've never been on the board outside of having a CEO, normally contracts, well, starting July 1, contracts are signed by the treasurer, not me. Okay, just for a point of reference, he signed, the treasurer will sign all contracts.
Good evening. In the packet is the monthly financial report for the month of January. It was also distributed at the last board meeting. Through the first 7 months of the fiscal year within the general fund, revenues have come in at approximately $52.7 million, with expenses in the general fund coming in at approximately $50 million. Therefore, in the general fund, for the first 7 months of fiscal year 22, revenue has exceeded expenses by approximately $2.6 million. I'd like to call attention to line item Under expenses where it says under purchase service in the foundation out line item, you will see the negative $3.8 million within that line item. If you recall, due to House Bill 110 and the change in the school funding formula, where the students are now funded where they're educated versus where they reside. Therefore, in the month of January, the foundation payment has been updated to get us back to zero, hence the negative $3.8 million in that line item, as well as there has been no expenses projected out for the last 5 months of the fiscal year. As far as all funds go, excluding the general fund through the first 7 months, revenue has been at approximately $50.8 million, with expenditures coming in at approximately $52.7 million. Again, we are anticipating putting $2.8 million back into the general fund as of June 30th. Any questions regarding the January monthly financial report?
Under, general property real estate, that negative,
So what that is, and the reason why that number is negative, again, property taxes are receipted in at a gross amount, not at the net amount. Therefore, once the settlement file does come out, and there are those expenses from the Mahoney County Auditor, once the advances have been made, again, is the reason for that negative number.
thank you.
We don't have anything for policy and legislation. What we talked about last time, we haven't met with Neola or anything, so we don't need anything until next month.
One question, will they be available when we have the, I don't know if it's the right time to ask that, but when we meet with OSB on the 29th, I kind of wanted to include policy because I'm real unclear about one of the policies.
Oh, you mean to have a representative here from Neola?
Well, when we meet with OSB on the 29th, that's gonna be included as part of our workshop.
Right.
Yeah.
So right now, I don't do board policy.
Right.
So I because it's House Bill 70. So if you want somebody for board policy, then that's going to be a part of the OSBA. But you would have to have the attorney there to talk through that board policy. The policy that I'm talking about pretty much is Neola, because that's the only thing that I've had the ability and the power to do is just Neola policy, which is regular, just school district policy.
So that will be the board to decide.
Correct.
Okay.
To the chair, I just want to say that OSBA does do policy, so that'll be part of the training when they come.
Curriculum, yeah,
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have 3 more updates regarding our benchmarks. So everybody should have received in the email from Mr. Giannetti as well as a hard copy tonight. I'll give you a minute to pull out your graphs. Everybody set? Okay, so an update tonight on where we stand with 3 of our benchmarks. Going to talk about benchmarks 1, 2, and 3. Benchmark 1 is regarding our literacy in regards to the Pele assessment. This is an assessment for our preschool scholars, but this benchmark is looking specifically at our 4 and 5-year-old scholars and how well they master their early literacy skills. This is one, if you remember too, this is definitely a benchmark that we need to resubmit at the end of this year because the Pele assessment is new this year, so we did not have any baseline data to go off of. Where we set our benchmark goals was based off of a prior assessment called Hegarty. It's similar, but it's, not exactly the same. So we want to see where we fall this year, and then we have to resubmit this to ODE at the end of this year, based on our baseline. But when we created this, we left our goal the same, using our baseline data from the Hegarty. So you'll notice here in 2018-19, again, this is Hegarty data, 60.23% of our scholars met or exceeded their benchmark on the Hegarty assessment. In 1920, we didn't administer any spring assessment, so there's no score there, and that was due to COVID. Last year in 2021, 53.2% of our scholars met their benchmark, met their goal based off of the Hegarty assessment. So this is our first year again using Peli, and at the middle of the year, we are at 42.93% of our scholars who are meeting their benchmark score at the middle of the year. We originally set our goal at the end of this year at 60%. So we are trending well. If we get, end of the year here, we're continuing with in-person instruction, we may hit that 60%, but it's something we definitely want to look at because this is the first year we're administering it, okay? So right now, we are not meeting that benchmark as of today. And you can see the goal is at the end of 2025, how we originally set this, that we want to be at 70%. But again, this is a definite, have to be resubmitted at the end of this year. Any questions on that one? Okay. Benchmark 2 also is involved with literacy. This is for our kindergarten and first grade scholars. This is an assessment called Acadians. You may have heard it referred to as DIBBLES before. It's an assessment we use to see if our scholars are on track or not on track in regards to literacy skills. It is required by the state to assess all of our scholars K-3 to see if they're on track or not on track in preparation for that third grade guarantee. So it's the same assessment, just the name changed this year from DIBBLES to Acadians. So all the data, the baseline is all the same. In 17-18, our baseline data was 58% of our scholars meeting their benchmark there, so their expected growth. In 18-19, we dipped down a little bit to 55% meeting their growth. In 19-20, again, due to COVID, we didn't have any data. Last year, you can see a huge dip due to attendance, due to remote learning. We were down to 38% of our scholars. This year, I'm glad to report that we are climbing back up there. Right now, at the mid-year, we're at 56.62%, so we are exceeding our target. At the end of this year, we were set to hit 43% of our scholars, so we have surpassed that right now, so this is met as of today. So as long as we stay on that path, we will meet the goal for this year. At the end of 25, you can see that our goal here is 63%. So again, if we continue to move forward and don't have any interruptions next year and future years with COVID and some of the quarantines that we had, I think we'll continue to stay steady on that path, closing that gap. Questions on 2? Benchmark 3 is the same thing, except it talks about scholars in grades 2nd and 3rd grade. So it's the same assessment. The baseline data is different though. In 17 and 18, 64% of our scholars were meeting their growth target. In 18-19, 58% were meeting their target. 19-20, again, no data due to COVID. 2021, we had that dip again last year due to remote learning and absences. We were at 41. Right now, you'll see the circles are intersecting. But we are meeting it. It's hard to see, but if you look in the text box, our mid-year value right now is 46.67% of our scholars are meeting their benchmark, or their growth target right now. Our goal at the end of this year is 45%. So this is one we're continuing to keep an eye on. We're continuing to work on those targeted interventions during the intervention period because we want to make sure that that rises. And again, really important to tighten up that gap and shrink it because we need our scholars to be on track and to be proficient in 3rd grade. Okay, you'll see that by the end of 25, our goal is to be at 63%. So tonight, of the 3 benchmarks, we're meeting 2 out of the 3, which is 33%. Just to give you a summary of what we reported out so far, it's 66%, we're not meeting 33%. A total of where we're at last month I reported on 10 benchmarks, tonight 3. So we've talked about 13 out of the 24. Of those 13, we are currently meeting 9 of the 13, which is 69.23%. So if we continue to stay on that path with our other benchmarks, we're looking good right now. Questions?
It's not exactly about this, but it is a question dealing with education. We spoke about seals. Were the counselors going to speak to the students? I thought they were going to speak to them at the beginning of the year on how they could earn seals and what those seals could be in. But a conversation last week, and I mentioned seals, and this counselor was saying that she was waiting for the students to be able to get a certain score in geometry or something to meet one of the seals. So I did ask, I says, well, what about your seals that you can get for volunteering, and a number of seals? And I don't think they've mentioned them to the students yet, because this is the end of the year. Some of those seals could have already been earned by now.
Do you want me to address it? You can chime in. They should be meeting with them from the beginning. The counselors, there's a grade level counselor for, 9th grade, one for 10th grade, one for 11th, etc. They have a sheet that has all the criteria for graduation, all the credits. It's almost like a checklist, right? For a student, they cross them off. It tells them what seals they're, eligible. Well, it lists all the seals, and then they can keep track if they got them or not. They must have one state seal. They can have 2 state seals, but they must have 1. So the counselor should be going through all that, and it's multiple times through the year. I can talk with you offline too to see where that was, and we can address that.
Right, thank you.
Because that is something that Ms. Varney in my department, she oversees and works with the counselors, making sure that they're on track, they have their sheets, etc. The score that you were referring to is the competency score, because they need to have a competency score on their state test. And you can earn different seals if you score so proficient or above, like on the science and the social studies. And typically, the social studies state assessments, our scholars perform better in the social studies assessments compared to the other ones. So that is a seal, the citizenship seal, that we feel that a lot of our scholars have the ability to reach. So, Mr. Batcher, we can look into that and have a conversation.
Yeah, because I was really surprised when I heard it. I mean, this is almost at the end of the school year.
And Ms. Yosef just reminded me to mention that, part of our AIP as well is that each of our scholars has a graduation plan. So they, again, the documentation, the paperwork, they all have that. They're reflecting on it multiple times, sending home notices. But let's talk offline who that is, and we'll address that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions about the 3 rules, 3 benchmarks? Okay, thank you. Who's next here?
Are we done?
I was not supposed to today any requests to address the board.
I have a question. Is this a new mission statement? Is that why we have it? What is this? Okay, but it says this, so this is, I didn't look at the mission statement, I'll be honest with you. Is this the same as on the website now? Okay. All right. I just wondered why you gave it to us. I have the sticker things, thank you. But I just wondered. All right.
You got it. You'll be in trouble. Ms. Kimball, we try to tie back to the strategic plan, the district initiative. So when I'm putting together presentations, I'm always gonna tie it back to what we're doing. That's why it's there. All right.
And that's the same point that we were making, and I know I keep looking at you because we talk finance, but that's the same point we're making when we spend money. When people come and they want to spend money, the first thing that I ask her, and I ask anybody else, how is this tied into your school improvement plan? How is it tied into the district improvement plan? Like the example she gave, there's no way I'm gonna approve a coffee maker.
Yeah.
Because it's not tied into anything, and that's the easiest way to say no. And it also it ensures that our principals and our teachers, they have to know the school improvement plan in order to make purchases. And that's not something that we've done in the past. Something we've done in the past is, what do you want? Let's get it for you. But if it's not connected to the school improvement plan and really helping us with the AIP, then we're not doing it. So hopefully, when the board has all the power back, you keep that philosophy. If it's not connected to improving our student learning, we're not doing it. So it's not popular. I catch a lot of flack. I get doors closed on me sometimes in school because I've turned things down, but it has to be connected to our students' learning. It's the right thing to do, not only for our students, but it's also the right thing to do for our community. And it's the way that I want to represent you. So we don't want to be known for not being frugal.
Good chair. Was there a job fair today? Was it a job fair today?
I think the Chauvin working with East, yes, there was. I wasn't able to attend, but yeah, there was a job fair today, yes. And Dr. Seville would be the one that would give update on that.
He talked about it when he talked the last time about the job fair. We just did it this time at East. The next time they're going to do it at Cheney, then they're going to start doing it together.
To the chair, when we have events going on in the district, it would be good if we know about it, so that I know I'm much more flexible than most of our other board members. And so when we have things going on in the district, I would love to know about it, to see, come and participate and be a support.
So I'll make it. Well, I'll try to do it now. But I mean, when I'm the superintendent, you'll get a weekly update on the off days that we don't have a board meeting. So that Friday, you'll get a Friday update. So you'll have all those things. So every week I'll give you an update, and it'll be for 2 weeks, so you can have everything. And part of that is a calendar for those 2 weeks. But I'll make sure that I get those things out.
May I give an update of an event this weekend? They might want to go. So it's our first ever JROTC drill competition that we're hosting. So please stop out and support them. They're really excited about that, and they've always done well when they've gone to other schools to participate. So this is the first time they're hosting. East High School, the drill competition will be from 9 to 3. They have several other different, what do you call them, squads, teams coming. And, they have pizza and water for the teams. They're not going to have concessions or anything yet because they want to really get this under their belt. But in future years, they'll expand and, have everything. But you're welcome to come. There's no cost for admission or anything. East High School, 9 to 3 on Saturday the 12th. What's tomorrow?
Tomorrow is MLK's Literacy Night. They're so excited about it.
Did you hear, Amanda? MLK's Literacy Night is tomorrow. Do you have a time on that?
No, I know it's after school. Is it 4 to
I'll
Like,
say something else tomorrow. I'll say something.
They're real excited. They're having a carnival theme. It's so exciting for them. So you see it.
Just to follow up to Mrs. Sawicki's announcement about JROTC, I would be remiss if I did not just let the board know how strong of a program we have and how important that program is. And it's something that I'm really proud of at East High School and as part of Youngstown City Schools. Sergeant Moon has been part of it for years and has been doing a great job. And now we have a new senior commander, Lieutenant Colonel Alessi. Sergeant Moon is been there, he's gone through some times, even back to the rain days from what I understand. So, but the board, it is a program, it does not recruit students to the military. That is the important thing that they will tell you, the Army will tell you that. But it's important that that program continues to thrive, and because of the power of the program, and the distinction that they've received over the years, the principal of that high school actually has the ability to write a recommendation or a nomination to students to West Point, the military academy at West Point. Usually only senators can do that, but because of the rate of distinction that that program has, Ms. Campbell, as the principal at East, has the ability to nominate a student to West Point. We haven't done that in the last several years, but that is an honor to be able to have a program of that distinction, that your principal can actually recommend a student to that academy. So it's something we want to continue to flourish in Youngstown City schools.
The literacy night is 5 to 7 tomorrow. I'll still send it to you in the email.
To the chair, can I ask you for a favor? Can you restate our upcoming dates of trainings and things?
On March 15th, we'll meet to discuss the superintendent contract at 5:30. March 29th, we're gonna have a training with OSB, the board, OSB, Mr. Janetti and CEO Jennings. And then today, they got back to me and it was May 17th will be the second training we have scheduled with OSB.
Do you use your calendar on your phone? I'll send an invite to those days. I was just waiting for everything else to find my name. I'll send you.
Yes, I won't be able to add it to the calendar that I use because I think I use Outlook and it won't accept it.
Oh, you want to accept the Google invite?
Because it's a county email. It's a county calendar. I have to plug it in myself.
And just one more thing I wanted to say, about our plan, and me and Mr. Lee can talk about it. I just think it's encouraging that we're meeting these benchmarks so far, and I just feel good about the direction where we're going so far. Just, commend you and the administration and the staff to keep it up.
Through the chair, I wanted to give the same sentiments, congratulations on the benchmark meeting so far and continue on. Definitely is something that is why he's looking forward. And also, the opportunity that I have been having to have with visiting the schools and the programs, definitely commend the teachers and educators and the students and everyone involved, volunteers, on the excellent job that they have been doing. And appreciate the open door coming to those events.
Thank you for that. I was there with both of you and also Reverend Johnson. They had Voices of YSU at one of our literacy events, and they were amazing. We had a good time, didn't we?
I wanted to say.
I know.
I guess we can, to the chair. I gotta say this to the board members. In case you don't know, our staff is recognizing that you're in the building. So I walked into Harding the other day, and the assistant principal came up to me and said, I've been here for 23 years. He says, the first time I've ever seen a board member in the building who talked to me. So that person who did it, you just know that you have impact. So if there is something and you just show up, believe they are recognizing that you're there. Because before, when people showed up, I think you and I had this conversation. It gets to a point, if you come so often, it becomes normal. But when Pastor Donaldson first used to show up, people used to always call me like, hey, he's in the building. But now, I don't even know. They, like afterwards, they'll say, Pastor Donaldson came, this is what we talked about. And I mean, he was so gracious and those different things. And for those who showed up for the different award ceremony, the kids recognized too. They can't say your last name, so you have to teach them your last name.
Well, if they over 18, they can come work for me.
I just want you to know that people are, the students and the staff as well, they're recognizing that you're in the building.
Good job.
Yep.
Any more questions? Comments? I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Janetti, roll call.
Ms. Savekovich?
Yes.